Okay, let's deal with the quadratic formula and where this actually comes from, what process is used, and will this help? And this will help you solve other problems. So first, let's begin with the basics of a quadratic formula. Of the quadratic, ax squared plus bx plus c. That's the basic form, right? And we'll often write this as equal to 0. Okay, this is its basic form. This is what we're going to work with. And in the end, you're going to see that this actually spits out the quadratic formula. But what we're first going to do is we want to just deal with this chunk first. So we're going to kick that c over to the other side. So we're going to minus c, and we're going to minus c. We have then ax squared plus bx is going to equal negative c. Now, we want to try to complete the square. And this one, you'll see, has the leading coefficient, right? It has an a. You guys have been taught you have to divide that a out and all this other stuff that's unnecessary and gives you guys fractions, which many of you don't like fractions. So we have this a, we have to deal with that. So one of the things we can do is we can multiply the whole thing through by this a. But more importantly, we also have to deal with this property that a quadratic has. And to do that, we need to use the square of the even prime. The only even prime is 2, so the square of that would be 4. So I'm going to multiply the whole thing by 4a on the left side. And of course, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So we're going to multiply this by 4a. This is going to give me 4a squared x squared, a perfect square, that's nice, plus 4ab x, and I'm going to leave a space because we're going to need to figure out what's going to go there. And over on this side, I end up with minus 4ac plus something, whatever I add to the left side, I have to add to the right side. Now, to figure out what's going to be added here, I need to figure out, I need to kind of divide off the factors of my front side. Like this piece, we know that when we do this, we end up with that AB in the middle, right? This term, my left term, and my right term of the binomial. And we're trying to figure out what that right term is going to be. So I have 4a here. I could divide out the 4a here. And we're only looking at the coefficient, right? A and b are just real numbers. X is the variable we're looking for. If I divide that out, I'm left with b. So what I'll add to this, and I should square it, so I'm going to add b squared to both sides. Whatever that term is. Okay, I've taken out the 4a that I had just multiplied by, so I can deal with my what's going to be the other side of the equation. This means that we now have a perfect square trinomial. So this piece here, that color, this piece here is now a perfect square trinomial. And we've talked about in class a perfect square trinomial, factors to be, in this case, the square roots of each of the two sides. So 2ax plus b. And then I square that. And if I wanted to check this, I could check this. I could multiply this thing through. I could basically say, well, that's really 2ax plus b times 2ax plus b. And if I did that, I would end up with that. So we're just writing it more concise. And on this side, I'm going to put it in a little bit different order. I want to put it as a polite mathematician with my highest degree. So b squared minus 4ac. Slide that up a bit. Okay, now we're trying to undo this, right? The goal is to determine what x is equal to. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to square root both sides. So I'm going to square root this side, and I'm going to square root this side. And this would get the plus minus. You don't do plus minus to both sides. It only applies to the side that doesn't have the x in it. This piece cancels this piece. So now I'm left with 2ax plus b is equal to plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And if you've memorized the quadratic formula, you're going to see pieces of that happen here. We don't have to memorize it because we know how it came about, and we understand that all we have to do is multiply through by 4a. We're going to minus the b. Remember, we're looking for x, so we'll minus b over here. This is going to give us 2ax is equal to minus b plus minus the square root b squared minus 4ac. And then we divide this by the 2a because we want to solve for x. We divide this by the 2a, and we have that x is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a, which you may recall is the quadratic formula. And we got it not by clearing our leading coefficients up here. We did not clear this a. We rejoiced with the a. So we didn't deal with fractions. And a lot of you don't like fractions. So by using the power of 2, we use the power of 2 and whatever the a is. So this piece goes there. We use this to square, so now we have a squared. So the two of these pieces together give us that. And then we square this for here, so we end up with a beautiful, perfect square here. In practice, this always works. This is completing the square with a leading coefficient without worrying about dealing with fractions. That being said, this 4a squared, if your a is something like 15 or bigger, right, you're going to not only square that 15, but then you're going to multiply it by 4. That's going to become very large very quickly. You do need to be cautious doing this. In fact, usually when I do it, I leave everything factored until I'm down here. Then I start saying, okay, let's unfactor it. Let's put in just some numbers and see where we're at. Where I can, I try to leave it factored, but as I work with it, again, I've shared, I don't like working with big numbers if I can avoid them. All right, I hope this helps.